right, we only have an hour 20 because you said you have a hard stop at 5 and we're doing this on a
Well,
Sunday.
I'm just being facetious, but everyone's
Yeah.
going to be hungry. No, it's around 5-ish. It's
Yeah,
fine. But
it's already 3:41, so we got an hour 20 to get as much done as possible. As I said, well, we're starting it now, so yesterday you had no power, which we still don't know why you didn't have power. Michael said all of Bedminster was out of power.
right.
So
So originally when we started the story about the oven, I thought we blew the power out in the house. That's when it didn't really work that way. So the thing sparked on the oven and we had power, then it flickered, and then it went completely out. So that's our first reaction was to call our neighbor and say, "Hey, did you
you
lose
have power,
power?"
right? You
Said,
thought you
"Yeah."
blew
All
out the
right,
whole
okay.
fuse box. So that was my
Yeah.
parents' Sunday.
Yeah, that was Sunday.
That was Sunday.
Saturday.
Or Saturday,
That
sorry,
was
yeah, because today's
yesterday.
Sunday.
Yes. Today was just moving things around and setting our Faco kitchen back up
Yeah.
again.
Now I hear that you went to Deadpool yesterday. Michael, literally the second he was done on Friday, he texted me. He goes, "I'm seeing it again tomorrow. It's Mom's going." It's like, brother, you're too into this.
He was talking about it so much, and also I started reading stuff because now all the cameos are coming out.
I'm
because the
trying
movies
not
are
to look at anything. I still have not had the time to watch any of them. So
Yeah.
again, I told myself I was going to watch them, at least the first one tonight. But
Well, you probably all know this, but I'll forewarn those of my generation. You got to always watch after the credits.
yeah, with the Marvel
because-
movies.
Right. So stuff happened in Deadpool 3. I won't go into it, but I was like, how did that happen? Because it was so different in Deadpool 2, the way it ended. So I felt like I missed something in there, which tends to happen with me with the Marvel stuff. So I even mentioned it to Dad last night. I said, because Deadpool 2 is on right now. Since the new movie's coming
Right.
out, they run the old ones. So we were watching Deadpool 2, and I said, "Do you realize that such and such happens at the end?" He goes, "No, it doesn't. I've seen this so many times." Sure enough, last night we waited till the end of the credits, and a major thing happens at the end of the credits in Deadpool 2, where I was like, "Oh, okay, now I understand."
Yeah, the Marvel
After I
movies.
saw it.
The Marvel movies specifically, like you have to watch till the end because that's
Yeah.
when the stuff happens. There's a lot of shows that I watch that they'll do that. You have like the end credits, and then you have to watch the end that leads into the next episode. That's
Right.
yeah. So
Right. Well, they had that in Deadpool 3 also. It wasn't really about a future show, but it's definitely funny to watch at the end. It's worth it.
Really?
So a lot of it is very,
yeah, I haven't seen.
it's for Ryan Reynolds.
I'm purposely not seeing anything because I don't want any spoilers. Because Michael told me you gave it a 9.5 out of 10. Was he blowing smoke up my ass?
Well,
Was
no,
he
and I
lying?
knew the spoilers. I mean, it would have been even better if I didn't know the spoilers ahead of time, but I wanted to. Like, I was reading about it
Right.
in anticipation of my going. And even knowing the spoilers, because I like those kind of movies when they have those elements of reality,
Right.
like things going on, and when they reference people that they know in real life, or when they do nostalgia things.
The cool thing about Deadpool specifically, like in the comics, is he's the only comic that is 4-dimensional. So he knows he's in a comic book.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know. So that's kind of the joke of Deadpool. He knows that he's a superhero in a comic.
Okay. See, I never realized there were multiple Deadpools.
Yes.
I thought they just did that for the movie franchise, and Mike reminded me, no, there's all different kinds of Deadpools. That's why.
Yeah,
that's
but
for the show.
Marvel and specifically Marvel and DC, you have that multiverse thing, and not to
Yes.
go into the history, but back in the '90s, DC and Marvel went bankrupt because no one was buying comic books,
Yeah.
and what ended up happening is they sold the rights to basically anyone. So they needed the money so bad. People like you or I can make comics about Batman or Spider-Man, like Batman's DC, Spider-Man's Marvel. And then as they started making money back, they came up with like the multiverse theory, which is, that's how they kind of saved it. DC's a little tougher because they had something called the Flashpoint Complex, which brought everything together. And because of that, it kind of screwed them because the multiverse was like, oh, you stole this from Marvel.
Right. Well, I will give them credit for doing that, and also for
Give it to
like,
Stan Lee.
specifically-
That's all Stan Lee.
Right, and specifically for X-Men, was really ingenious when they went back in time to the 1970s. They
Right.
got the same characters, but a whole different group of younger actors. So how many years did they do shows with just those actors for X-Men? So, and now with some of them,
Hey man, do you
With some-
have a fan on? Do you have your fan on again?
yeah, I do.
It's so loud.
I've been lowering it. It's down to next to nothing.
Sounds like a weed whacker in the
um,
background.
with so many actors aging out,
Mhm.
getting too old to play certain roles, it really was a good answer doing this multi-universe thing because you can go and pick a different
Yeah,
character to
exactly.
play the same one. So, yeah, I mean, I give them credit. They do talk about, I'm not giving anything away by saying this. That is a big part of it. That 20th Century Fox gave up some of their rights because it was bought, I think they was bought by Disney.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then
Marvel's
they
owned
bought
by
it out.
Disney now.
And that's referenced in the movie, and people will see it when
Oh,
they
really?
see it.
That is funny.
Yeah, it's not even, they don't hide it either. It's right out there, it's pretty blatant, but it kind of explains the rest of the movie because there's some stuff at the end where if you didn't know why you could do it and not know, but it gave it more meaning. So that was my point. That's the kind of stuff I like to see when they're phasing something out and something new in, and they go back in time and nostalgia and all this stuff.
Right.
A lot of stuff I didn't know because, like I said, I'm going there going, why is this happening in Deadpool 3?
Yeah.
Like,
Um, so when do you remember when I was home and we watched the Spider-Man movie, with Mike, the
yeah.
Miles Morales one? I think it's Miles
Yep.
Morales. And you have that multi-universe of all of the Spider-Men. Like,
Yes.
technically speaking, each one of this is how big comics are in the sense of how many there are. Every single one of those people in there have comics that ran for 20 comic books or whatever. You can do entire movies on each person in there, multiple movies. So
Yeah.
that's why the idea that, like, a lot of people think the Marvel series is going to quote unquote end. Maybe the Avengers stuff because that only ran for so long, and then they're going to start making stories. But like, if they ever wanted to make a Spider-Man based off just one of those in there, you have another franchise because the comics are already made.
No, yeah, I was saying to Mike, how they have Up TV and certain stations that'll just run one series over and over again, like the Gilmore Girls. I mean,
Yeah.
they were on constantly. I said you could really like take an FX or one of those stations, and you can it could just run X-Men or
Yeah,
Avenger movies
absolutely.
all day long in sequence, one right after the other,
Well,
and just keep doing it
you
because
also
people will watch.
forget about the TV shows. Remember, there was the Batman animated series that ran for
Yeah.
seasons. You had Batman Beyond. Like, when we were growing up, you had uh uh the Justice League was its own show. You could keep going.
Yeah, the cartoon ones,
There's
Saturday morning
I would
ones, yeah.
argue there's more comic book stories you could do than there are even total shows on TV.
Well, yeah, and I think that even goes back before my generation, like before the kids in the 1950s.
MASH.
I was born in the 60s, but kids in the 40s and the 50s, that's all they had was comic books
Yeah.
because you didn't have, I mean, you went to the movies, but they didn't have animation. And that was their form of entertainment. Kids would get them really cheap, a nickel or whatever, and read all the new comics. And they would go to the store and say, oh, did you get the new one in yet? Did you get the new one in? Like
Right.
what you guys treat for games. So it was an audience and a market that it was almost insatiable because there's so many people in America. They each kids and they all wanted a different series and they all,
Yeah. What's also cool is because of that, them going bankrupt in the 90s and separating everything, the amount of ideas, they started catering more to adults. So now you have
Yeah.
like the zombies, X-Men stuff, which is really cool, where Wolverine's the only one that survives. That's a really cool story that I hope they turn into a movie. And I think they actually announced they're doing a movie on that. And like the problem with the Marvel series, like when they do the big event for what's coming out, it's like,
Right.
oh, 2028, because
Yeah.
it takes so long and then you forget about them. But I know this
Well,
weekend
there's
was
one
the whole.
coming out in, I think, did they say not Thanksgiving? It might be next year. It's a Captain America, but it's Falcon.
Yes, I did see
So
that.
Falcon crosses over and becomes, Falcon, a flying Captain America, if you will. And they're just promoting it now. The trailer was out at this movie. So, they're trying to. Some of that stuff I think they do have to be careful with because they're doing a lot with the. Well, I can say this because it's public knowledge. Robert Downey Jr. is now going to play Doctor No, I think
Yeah.
it is.
Oh,
that who it
Mom,
is?
Doctor Doom. Wow,
Oh,
Doctor
is it Dr.
No.
Doom? Okay, so Dr. Doom and
Who
Dr.
the
Doom
fuck
was
is Doctor No?
whatever. I think that was 007. But okay.
Yeah.
So Dr. Doom. And I mentioned that to Mike. That's a little weird. Iron Man is now going to be Dr. Doom, but he said, yeah, they'll probably go back into some other universe
Where Tony
he's the
Stark
bad guy.
becomes, yeah.
Right. So I'm like, all right, now you're getting a little bit okay, as long as the story makes sense. If they start getting like too kooky about it, a
Yeah,
lot of
you
people
can
didn't like
always
the
make it
story.
make sense. That's the thing. But I like when it goes off the comic books because I think if I remember correctly, I haven't seen any of the Avenger movies except for the first one. I believe the second one, maybe the third one, is not accurate to the comics, but it's still a great movie. I've never read through them. I like comics and I know the knowledge of comics, but I don't read comics, so I'm not that deep.
Yeah.
Like I've never read the Deadpool comic.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of aged out of that to some extent, but I do recall as a young adult when Michael Keaton played Batman, and that was the start of the adult movies,
Right.
the cinema bringing the cartoon to life with Jack Nicholson, and we talked about the other characters. I forget who else was in it, but because that was such a success, that's what got them more and more thinking about, all right, let's do another Batman and another one and do the next characters. But now we need a different Batman. Michael Keaton didn't want to do it, and Jack Nicholson didn't want blah, blah, blah. So, and I think it just kind of grew from there. Then it became a moneymaker, and it made sense to do these.
Yeah, they do so well. They're definitely some of the best movies out there. There's really no question about that with the GFX and stuff. And Disney bought them, so they basically have unlimited money. But I'll have to hand it to Disney. I don't know if you've noticed, but Disney's really kind of made a turnaround in the sense of they're starting to cater more to my generation because they're realizing that kids nowadays aren't watching Disney. Like they just did a huge Disney punk rock album. They're bringing back a lot of the horror shows and themes. So I think they're starting to realize like kids aren't watching Disney anymore. Cartoon Network just went out of business. Did you see that?
Oh, really?
They filed for bankruptcy. So what's going to end up happening is someone's going to buy them out, obviously. But I think people think that Cartoon Network's just going to cease to exist, but that's not how that works.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one because I would think Cartoon Network, anything catering to children, I would think would be more cable based rather than streaming based. And I wouldn't think that because most parents aren't going to throw on the streaming and let their kid log into streaming to go watch cartoons.
I don't know if that's true anymore. I think a lot of them are watching YouTube. Remember, YouTube has its own YouTube Kids app that a lot of parents just throw to their kids.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, to me, in the morning you got up, turned the TV on, and watched it. Your parents weren't even involved.
Yeah, I think PBS is in there, like PBS Kids or whatever. I think that's a little more used.
Okay,
Sesame Street.
PBS is different. PBS is public. They get government money.
Gotcha. But
they're not private.
Yeah, like I don't know what kids watch nowadays, cartoon wise, but it's upsetting that Cartoon Network's gone. Like I saw
don't know what cartoons. I mean, that's the other sad part.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, what's the alternative? Are they streaming? Are they watching it on, like we told us last time, PlayStation, GameCube, stuff like that? Like, why aren't they watching those networks? What's taking the place? It's not like kids don't have anything something better to do. They don't.
Yeah. I like to think they're playing outside, getting active, but I don't think that's true either.
Yeah. I almost got out and took a picture from my car. I was driving home, and you'll know it if I told you, but I was coming home with the food store and I was going over a one-lane bridge. People fish there. I actually saw 3 boys, probably like middle school age.
Fishing?
Sitting there fishing. Yeah, they had their bikes and they were on the bridge fishing. I'm like, fine. I almost got out and took a picture. Like, oh my God, kids doing what kids used to do. This is amazing. On a Saturday afternoon in the hot summer,
Wow. I doubt they caught anything by over there, but that's probably a waste of 5 hours.
They were doing their thing, hanging out in the sun, outside, not sitting. And then another day, what was it, last week? Wednesday, we were driving in some suburban area down in Virginia. And your dad looks and he goes, it's a summer day, middle of the day. Do you see one kid out on a bike? Nothing.
Oh, nothing? Well, that's Virginia. I don't think there's any life down in Virginia. It's all just sad
I think
people.
you're only going to find that in the West Coast, I'll be honest. I think it's really gotten that bad. It's only on the West Coast.
Yeah, it's possible. I see more and more people out now, which is nice. Yeah. Problem is everyone stands outside of my window and talks, and I'm like, oh, God. Yeah, I can hear the kids just right there, like running back and forth. And I see their shadow through my blinds.
Yeah.
So I go, okay, thanks. As I'm trying to do recordings.
On the bottom floor.
Yeah. So... All right, Mother, you ready to get this started? We got a lot to go through in about an hour. Where do we want to start? I mean, we could start with how great the opening Olympics were. The opening ceremony. Let me
Did I send you Sky News today?
No, you sent me something.
With Sky News?
You sent me something with Steve Bannon, but it was his Kick live stream or Rumble live stream. So it wasn't really...
yeah, that's something different. That's not the Olympics. That was a good one.
Yeah, I couldn't see what it was because that was live. You sent me something live when he wasn't live, so I couldn't see it.
No, I think you could get it on Rumble. since I sent it to your father too, so I think
I,
you
I,
can.
I don't even know what it was. We can find it, but
Not
so
urgent. Not urgent.
let's get into the opening of this Olympic. Now, one thing I will say, right, it's Sunday. This was what, Thursday. Um, I'm glad that right, YouTube's taking it down. Twitter took it down. They're trying to apologize, which is wild. But for those of you that didn't see it, this was, I mean, to say sacrilegious is kind of an understatement. They had a bunch, again, nothing wrong with the trans community. We're all inclusive, but you can't replicate the Last Supper with a bunch of transgender people and drag queens and whatnot, and then say, oh, that's not what we were trying to do. We were just trying to, it had nothing to do with the Last Supper, as you put them side by side. And you're like,
Right.
oh, it's exactly the same. And then the
Right.
apocalypse of the Four Horsemen, which was just out of nowhere. I don't know what
Right.
that was for.
I'm just trying. So Sky News did a good little 4-person, 5-person panel talking about it, and they're in Australia, right? And I think they're Australian, but they had a good take on it, and they were all basically saying the same thing. And the one guy at the end, it was very funny because he can't stand the French. He's like, "What would you expect from the French? This is the kind of stuff they do. They're idiots." Like he was just going off on the French. But he had a very good point. He goes, my wife works in some school area which they're trying so hard to be inclusive for the trans children, to make them feel comfortable and this and that. And then they go and they do something like this, right?
Right.
Which makes it so much harder for people to accept them when, you
Absolutely.
make it, you attack a religion or you make a mockery of it. And then you turn around and say, you have to include us in your religion, or you have to include us
Exactly.
in your
Yeah, it's
culture.
wild. Paris is in shambles right now to begin with. The last couple of weeks since that election, Paris is essentially a failed country right now. Right? It's exactly how Rome fell. Same concept. And then you're gonna do this. You're lucky. You're lucky that you are hosting the Olympics. Like becoming the country that hosts the Olympics, it's a massive deal. They start making the tracks and arenas for it years in advance, like a decade in advance. And then you're going to absolutely blow it by doing something like this. Like, you're not going to get any viewership now. I mean, right now the ratings are the lowest we've seen in a long time for the Olympics. No one's watching it.
Well, and I just saw somebody, I don't know, some tech company is pulling out their endorsement.
Sponsors are dropping like crazy. Like not even unquestionably. They're just dropping like crazy. One thing that's pretty cool is there's the Tate brothers. Remember Andrew and Tristan? They have like a group that are protesting it, and they're Muslim, but it says they're like trying to protect Christianity. It's like I don't understand. I respect certain aspects of the Muslim faith, but there's so many factions of Muslim, I guess. Some that are pro-Christianity, some that are anti, some that are Sharia law, some are. I don't understand how it works, but yeah, I was kind of surprised to see there's a group of Muslims.
Most of the militant Muslims of the Middle East, I will say, they don't hide in their speeches. Their leaders, they will outright say, "We will slaughter the Christians."
Exactly,
It is our duty to get rid of Christianity. That is their goal.
Right.
That is not the Christian goal. I mean, it used to be, and I'll be honest, in the Middle Ages, it was slaughter the Muslims because they're evil, do it for Christ. But that was 400 years ago, plus
More than that,
700 years ago. We're kind of past that. Well, you had the Inquisition in the 1600s. I mean, that had its, but I'll say that was the Middle Ages. The old church.
It was different, yeah.
And we've evolved, and it seems like this faction of the Muslim community is still old school, but the parallels that they continue to draw is the same. Why is it always the easy target? Why is it always Christianity?
Right.
And many of them, to their credit, have said, "Let me see you do something with the Muslims. Go ahead, show me something with Muhammad, and watch how fast they slap a fatah on your head, and every one of those trans people will be murdered in the streets of France."
Right.
Horrible thing, but that's the reality. And it's very, it's becoming...
That's like gays for Palestine, which is hilarious to me.
Right.
That's unbelievable.
They're attacking the only faith, really, whether you want it to or not, that will accept them. Not their lifestyle, but will accept them. There is no understanding in Christianity that these people should be killed.
Right.
There are people, I'm sure, out there who feel that way. It's
Right.
reasonable, ridiculous, but that's not what the faith says. Whereas there are factions of the Muslim faith that they will tell you, we do not allow homosexuals. We will murder you. And they think that's part of their religion. It's just not allowed.
Yeah.
So that's where they, like everything else, they've jumped the shark. And I'll be honest, I used to be very accepting of the trans community, very much blah blah blah. But this is the part I still can't understand. We've got dancing, parading drag queens. Maybe they're transsexual. I don't even know. Maybe they're just drag queens. I don't know. Funny, entertaining. We're going to mock Christianity. And on the other hand, they're like, don't you dare tell a trans kid that he can't, because he's going to kill himself if he doesn't. It's like two different dichotomies of this, I don't know if you call it a movement or of, in my opinion, a mental health condition. When on one hand it's celebrated and it's funny and it's an entertainment, and on the other hand it's desperate and it's sad, and it's these children need this and we have to get them transgendered or people.
I saw a great quote today, and again, I don't want to lump. Again, I have friends in the LGBT community that absolutely hate this stuff, like they have nothing to do with it. But I saw a tweet this morning that made a lot of sense, and it was like, of course, it's transgender. It's men have no say in women's rights of having a kid, but men can have kids.
Yeah.
It's such a double negative. Did you see what's going on with the, I think it was in Paris today. There's a riot right now between it's a lesbian riot and the other side is a trans riot. Yeah, and the trans are mad at the lesbians for not liking men turned female.
Yeah.
Like if you were an alien species looking at us right now, you'd be like, what is going on with these humans? Right. Doesn't make sense.
Well, yes, and that's why, as I started to say, I think the trans community, unfortunately, have become useful idiots for a bigger
cause,
to create chaos and to destroy the Western culture. And obviously, Christianity it's the cornerstone of your Western culture.
Well, I don't think they don't have
the church was the educator. It was the cornerstone. It's what brought the Renaissance. It's what paid for the Renaissance. It's what brought us to where we are today. And it's been a constant battle since then to crush Christianity. For people who learned of the Crusades. The Crusades continue. This battle between Christianity and the Muslim community of all religions, right? Who's going to win out? And now it's a culture war, and they being the Muslim community nowadays, they will use any weapon they can to create that chaos. So you're right, Paris is a mess. And one of these people in Sky News, she reminded us, do you realize there's like 1,300 attacks? It averages 3 days on Catholic churches, Christian places throughout France, every day. Every day.
I would ask what the definition of attack is. Right, that would be
burning the church down. There are churches that are being burned down in France.
1,300 a day? That doesn't make sense.
No. Right. 1,300. I'm sorry, I said a day. 3 a day, right? I think there's been 1,300, and she quoted some time frame, but it averages about 3 a day, right? And it's and some of them as bad as burning down churches.
Okay, well, so that's completely different than what you said. So like an attack could be a rock thrown through a window. Burning, I would say, is a little higher than a.
Right. I mean, that could be one of the 3. Right. My point is, it's not just minor. It's not just a kid being pushed off a bike kind of thing. These are major attacks. And I'd like to point out, this is the country of Joan of Arc.
Right, exactly.
Even non-Christians know who Joan of Arc is. They were a Catholic country, just like Spain. I mean, that was part of the war with England, the religious war, the Pope, and supporting the Pope and the Catholic faith. So how far they have fallen, and is it for the better? Not from what I see for that country. Looks like chaos.
Oh, no, yeah, everyone agreed. Like, tourism's going to go down significantly. It's going to take them many years to recover from what's going on right now, especially if...
Well, you spend a lot of money on those Olympics, but the point is you're supposed to get revenue and money back.
Yeah, there's going to be no revenue and money back. People are going to lose money on this.
A host city.
Yeah.
They want to host the Olympics. It's a big deal. You go into a lottery, but you got to spend a lot of money with the thought that you're going to get it back.
I believe the next one's here.
Could be.
I believe the 28
Olympics. Something like it's like a Chicago or some ridiculous.
I feel like it's. Well, let me see. I'm actually curious. 2028.
Sometimes they put them in the most,
Los Angeles.
Expensive.
Ooh. That's not what we wanted to hear.
They better start cleaning up the homeless now.
One thing,
Maybe they'll have it
hey,
done by
one thing
then.
I'll give Newsom is the second something important happens, he drops all his liberal agendas, cleans the streets, and gets whoever there the
Yeah.
warmest welcome.
Yeah.
Right, Xi Jinping?
Well, now they got to turn it around before the election, right? They haven't the month of August to make it sound like, see, Democrat policies clean the streets of
Yeah.
Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah. That's, I mean, we don't really have too many political ones today, but to stay on topic with this one, I saw the whole, you pulled this argument with Butker saying, I mean, it's just the whole Last Supper thing was wild. It's wild that you have something that when you put side by side, oh, this is the Last Supper, and then they go, it's not about the Last Supper. That's just how it's just coincidence. It's like, what? And then all of a sudden the 4 horses of the apocalypse come out. It's like, where the hell did this come from? Did you guys just throw a dart in a book?
What does it have to do with
Absolutely nothing. I don't know what the point is.
That's why it's so blatantly pandering and mocking of a faith for an agenda that has nothing to do with the Olympics.
Yeah. It's that lady's gonna get fired. She'll probably never have a job again.
It's a man.
Whatever. Potato.
A man who is doing it. And I'm not. It bothers me about the Christian depiction of the Last Supper, which even that, Leonardo da Vinci was Italian. He wasn't French. So I don't even know why that's... If you told me it was a French artist, and at least there's some connection with
You're
that.
right. There's no connection whatsoever. Yeah.
Also, and their two biggest singers, arguably, was an American and a Canadian.
Yep. French Canadian.
Nobody even knew the French Canadian, but nobody even knew the. As far as I know, I didn't watch it. I'll be honest. You
mean you didn't watch the 4-hour intro? It was a 4-hour ceremony. Do you know how? Nope. Who the hell has 4 hours to watch a ceremony like that?
And from what I understand, there wasn't anything creative about it. Like when the British did it, they did the 007 with the Queen of England,
which is cool. Yeah,
remember that whole scene, and they pretended he was. So they made it cute, funny, entertaining. They brought the British royalty in, which is about England. I got nothing. I see a picture of, even your brother said to me, why is there a headless woman in the window?
Right, Marie Antoinette or whatever.
She was in red. I mean, it was just garish. It wasn't even, and this is supposed to be for families, by the way. You're supposed to be allowed to let little children.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think you mean it's supposed to be about sports.
Well, sports that the family can watch and countries can unite. Blah, blah. Exactly what Butker said, okay? Sports are about uniting people, not dividing them.
Yeah.
And this is I kudos to him, because now, hey, William's sister, maybe you want to relook at what he said. And he's actually right. This didn't unite people. Now you got people who don't even want to watch it. How about these poor young athletes who have been, those who are not professional, like the Dream Team? They've been working their asses off at their own expense for years now.
And no one's going to watch them.
Right. And imagine if you're a Christian and you had to walk out with that, with your country flag.
Yeah, you'd be like, what the hell?
I mean, it's just, it's the Olympic Committee better pause on this one and really rethink about the parameters when they give these prizes to these cities about, I think you could pick your own theme, but the general has to be inclusion. Yeah. Don't single out a religion of any kind. And
you destroyed the inclusion aspect. They took it and stepped on it. And, think about Qatar got so much shit for whatever they did. I don't even remember it because that's how bad this one was. I don't even remember what the Qatar one was. It was like something about alcohol, right?
Yeah, and I didn't notice anything too much with the Last Supper people, but my understanding from some of the videos I've seen, they were naked people. They hadn't been painted blue. They had,
a black, a African American, I think, drag queen played Jesus, who was obese and whatever. Right. It's like.
Right. No, she wasn't. I thought she was African American too. No, she was.
I don't know what she is, but it's like, I don't think she's white.
Whatever.
Yeah, and again, not being disrespectful, but like you disrespected the religion. And again, they're just people doing a job, being told what to do, and they go, "Oh, I need the money. I'll do it." I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. It's more so the committee that put it together. That's the problem, and that's between the Olympic Committee and whoever's running it in Paris.
Because, as I said, there's obviously an agenda going on. And they're using the trans community to push some sort of
But Mom, it wasn't the Last Supper. It just happened to look like the Last Supper, be identical to the Last Supper, but it wasn't the Last Supper. It's ridiculous.
Well, it's ridiculous, and I'm at the point where, like I said, I acquiesce to the trans community, whatever. I sit back and let it happen, and I'm old enough to know these things, these ideologies, they come and they go. Let's see if they take. But in this case, you know what? I'm done.
Nope.
I'm done. You don't go, or a group of people. I don't hold all trans responsible
Of
because they didn't
course.
all do
Right.
it. But I'm message to all trans. I don't want to hear it anymore. What you do in your life, in your room, in your house, that's your business. I'm done. I really don't,
Yeah.
censor me all you want to, but I'm done. I'm not in everybody's face, screaming at you about Jesus Christ every time I see you at the supermarket
Well,
or
it's
anybody
allowed. I
walking down
think
the
it's
street.
allowed. It's a loud minority, right? Because as I said, I know I have friends that are in that LGBT community. You won't even know that they're part of the LGBT community.
And that's how it should be, because that's what they always said they wanted. They just want to
Yeah,
be like everybody else. They're
exactly.
full of crap. They don't not
The
the
community
ideological.
itself, yeah. But
Well,
you
let's
know,
call it no, not the trans pushing, or the people
pushing
pushing the
it,
trans.
right. That yeah,
They're pushing to the point where I wish more trans people would come up and say, and they'll start saying, enough. We don't
Well,
need.
there's tons that do say that. There's tons of them that do, but they're one person on a podcast who doesn't
Yeah,
have any power. They're not the majority, or they're the quiet majority. Excuse me.
yeah.
But like when you break down the LGBT community, and there's all these different what's the word, foundations and stuff.
Actions, yeah.
Go look up how many of those guys got caught for like child porn,
Yeah, oh, I know.
pedophilia. It's insane, and they're people of high power in the community. Not saying that Hollywood's much better.
And that's what I'm saying. They're using this trans ideology to forward heinous things. They're hiding behind this of, well, it's okay that I'm a pedophile because I support trans.
Yeah.
No, that's not what the LGBTQ community was about.
Yeah.
I've known that from back in the 80s with the gay community. That's not what they're about. That's not to say every straight person and every gay person isn't criminals or whatever, but it's to say now we're at a point where like everything else, they took it too far. It's not even about trans anymore. Now it's just using something to mock a religion, happens to be my
Right.
religion, but to mock a religion. And I'm fed up. Show me how tough you are. Go ahead. Show me you mocking Muhammad. Impress me with that. Go ahead. Then maybe I'll give you some credence. But when you keep going after the only religion, frankly, that, for lack of a better word, tolerates that community. We may not say that it's, fine to be that way,
Right.
but we would never exclude them, and certainly wouldn't advocate throwing them off a building because they happen to be a drag queen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
We'll
Mom,
see
would
how
you
it goes.
say, here's a question before we move on to the next article. Would you say that the needle's starting to tip? And what I mean by that is I feel like, and I've been talking about this with my friends the last couple of days, I feel like we went to a left agenda for the last couple of years, and then now they're going over, they're really pushing the boundaries, and now you're seeing all these liberal companies, like YouTube's gotten rid of a lot of the Olympic stuff, Twitter, which obviously Elon bought it, so that's one thing. But you're seeing companies like we talked about last week that's like, we're not going to promote these LGBTQ pride things anymore because it's not worth it. Maybe theirs is financial, but I feel like that needle's starting to move a little bit, starting to shift.
I think when you look through history, and it's a scary thing to say this, but it's true, people have had it too good.
Oh yeah,
People have,
absolutely.
especially your generation, the younger generation, to some extent my generation, they got nothing better to do. So they sit around and create these ideologies, or they create these depressive situations. Unfortunately, people need to be shaken up a little bit in terms of wait till someday comes when the least of your concerns is your gender.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to get food, or you're fighting a war and it's on your soil, right? We Americans have no understanding of that. Do you really think in Ukraine they care right now about transgender issues?
Oh yeah.
Every
Well,
male is being sent to the front line to be slaughtered?
yeah, the real eye opener is if you have friends in foreign countries, like our neighbor, right, who used to live in Israel. I mean, he
Yeah.
was talking about growing up, like every week there was a bombing, and like this isn't new to them, the war that's going on. He was telling me when he was growing up, like cars down the street would just explode from bombs. Right?
Yeah, when you read the stories of the Nova Festival, and another one came out today of what happened, and I believe recently, a bunch of Hezbollah children or young people at a
Yeah.
soccer field were just
At a
bombed.
playground,
Now
yeah.
we're trying to figure out who did that, right? So Israel's saying it's Iran, and I cannot put it past anybody that it wasn't Israel. They'll bomb their own people.
Yeah,
The Hamas.
there's
They don't care. I'm not saying they did it. It'll be investigated, but apparently American intelligence is saying it wasn't Israel that did it. But that's the kind of war they'll do. But we just have to stop and think for a minute. There was no war on October 6th over there. A group of people went in and attacked, and it's not they advertised, they sent it out on social media. They were proud they did it. They attacked another country. And now we have people protesting all over about the country that was attacked.
Yeah, what bothers me, yeah, that's the part that I still don't get. And I don't know the history very well. I'm no expert in this. But to me, and this is like my grand mindset of like if I was to take what's going on based on what I do know, it's like, okay, Hamas, not Palestine, Hamas, which is their government, whatever you want to call it, whatever governing body you want to call it, they attacked Israel, right? Israel, everyone I know in America, this is how the love for their country, people got back on planes from America to go fight. They destroyed Hamas, right? As they were trying to attack. And then they start winning and Hamas is like, please stop attacking us. That's not... Yeah. That's war, okay? That's how war works, right? You can't attack and get wrecked and then go, please stop attacking us.
Well, and then you've got the ICC, which is the International Court, and I'll use her as an example. Amal Clooney, for some reason, she's a lawyer on this who got to pass judgment. She's a celebrity, obviously, everybody knows her. Okay. Yeah. They not only issued warrants for the arrest of the Hamas leader, but they also want Netanyahu for crimes against humanity.
Yeah.
And their comment is, every child matters. Of course, I agree with that. Of course, no child should be a victim of a war. But that's what happens when parents vote violent people in. They need to think about their children because you do have a right to retaliate.
My only argument to that, though, and you're right, but the tough part about this, which is why it's tough, is the Palestinian people aren't, to my understanding, again, maybe you know more than I do, but they're not the issue. It's the governing body of Hamas that's the issue, right?
Wrong.
You think so?
Absolutely wrong. That's the propaganda they want you to believe.
So you think that those
mothers over there are praising their sons for raping those women to death?
Okay, can we not use the R word? Because I'm gonna have to freaking mute that now.
Okay,
but
sorry for injuring these individuals to death. Okay.
Yes.
They raise their children in their schools to hate Israel from day one. Those children are bred that way, okay? You hate Israel. And as I started to say, Douglas Mackey is a war correspondent over there. And he's been doing it for a long time, and he's probably been on both sides and very deeply embedded. And he brings up some very good points. And this is history. They hate the Jews when they're all over the world. Then they hate the Jews when they find their own home state. They hate the Jews when they're rich.
Can I pause real fast, Mom? Because then I guess I need a better explanation. Because, again, I don't really pay attention to this anymore because I know I have no say in it. So what does Gaza have anything to do with anything? Because they're not... That's
territory.
That's territory, right.
Territory. Yes.
Yes. So that part I get. But, like, the people in there who are both Israeli and Palestinian... Isn't that kind of the difference between like the tolerant Muslims and the intolerant Muslims? Because they live amongst each other.
Israel has allowed some Palestinians to come over the border or over their wall, whatever, to work. So they could come in, they could do work, whatever. Those Arabs, those Palestinians, they don't, for the most part, they don't have issues with Israelis. They trade, they do their jobs,
exactly.
and they go home. That's not good enough. The people in that region, they want the land back and they want Israel out. They don't want Israel to have anything to do with it. But Israel, they have won that land through many wars. They had battled for it. And the interesting thing is, they always talk about a two-state solution. Well, Israel gets some land and he gives some to the Palestinians. The Palestinians don't want that. Israel doesn't either because you know what? Every time they give, they're still hated.
Right.
Anytime they give stuff, they're still hated. The Palestinians want them out from the river to the sea. They want the Israelis gone. Okay? But
what river, what sea, Mom?
Exactly. This is their call, which basically means annihilation. They want the land and they want the Jews out, and they will kill them to get it. They don't hide this. And this is not just Hamas or the other tribes. This is what these people, children are born believing that. They're trained to believe that. right?
Even in
And even
Gaza, you think, like, I would understand in Palestine, but in
no, yeah,
Gaza, you think that that's
yeah.
the same, even though they live amongst each other?
Yes, and the propaganda is they try and tell you, well, there's some nice Palestinian people who want nothing to do with this. Baloney. And most of the Egypt doesn't want these people. They're Arabs. They don't want them. They don't want to support them
Oh,
anymore
yeah.
either, because they have it both ways. Think about it. There's no real industry in these places with the Palestinians.
Right.
There's no business. There's nothing.
Well, the business
Israel
is Gaza, right? The business is the deals and stuff done in Gaza between
and
Israel
the
and.
money that everybody has to give for these quote unquote the refugees, the people with no land, blah blah blah. They live on government assistance from other governments.
Right.
Jordan's done paying for these people. They don't want to pay for them anymore. Egypt, they're done. They don't want to pay for them anymore. If anything, Israel created an economy. They created the kibbutz. They made a nation there for their people. And the Palestinians don't like that because they don't want to work to set something up. They want it given to them. They want the Israelis out. They want to take it over and do what? Because they're so used to being subsidized by everybody. They don't want to work.
Yeah.
Do anything.
They're going to try and
They
get
want
Israel to pay
America.
for it, right? Or
Right.
you,
Well,
they
not
think
just
America's
Israel.
going to get it? You think America? Do we
We
already give?
already subsidize them.
How-
We're already subsidizing all these nations, especially
Yeah.
the refugees, the Palestinian refugees.
Okay, so that's what you mean by
blah, blah, blah.
subsidize. Gotcha. Okay. But
Right.
my other question is, like, I just can't see. Well, again, it comes down to you attacked a superpower, which is Israel is a superpower to a certain extent. You lost, and now it's like, oh, we need help to win this. It's that like when I break it down to just the war aspect, it's not like you attacked a greater. It's like the David and Goliath, where David tries to attack Goliath, and Goliath is like, yo, I'm 10 times bigger than you, and just
Right,
starts
well,
to.
the only thing you're wrong about
Okay, go
there,
ahead.
it's not about Israel and Gaza. That's
It's
where you got to look.
it's Israel and Palestine. Well, Israel and
Well,
Hamas.
Palestine, Gaza, the Palestinians in that area. It's not about them.
Because
it's
I-
never about them.
Okay.
It's about the U.S. and Iran.
Right.
Iran runs Hezbollah. The U.S. is the ally with Israel. As strong as Israel is, and to their credit, they're very strong, they need the U.S. as their ally. And UK and the other Western countries we bring along with us.
Right.
Okay? Anytime there's an issue, I mean, we could walk away right now and say, good luck, Israel, good luck. No. Once Iran gets involved, now you got another war. And Iran keeps threatening. You touch another hair on Hamas's head, and we're going to get involved. Well, now you got a shit show.
But when we
That's
crush
the
Iran though, like isn't that
No, because Iran is now in a pact with China and with Russia. So if Iran this is World War III or II all over again.
Well, I would think
Everybody's
that's
going
actually
flying to-
bigger than I thought it was, because I would have thought my plan was, if I was in Russia's hands, or Russia's position, because I didn't realize that they were allies. Like I knew they had something to do with it, but I would have thought that Russia and China would just use it to finish their wars. And what I mean by their wars is, I think Russia would ask China for help against Ukraine. China would oblige, and then China's going to go in on Taiwan, and Russia's going to help them. Like I didn't even think about the whole fact that we would really get roped into us versus Iran again.
Yeah, they don't care about Israel. They want to bring the U.S. in. They
Oh
want
yeah.
us.
I mean that's obvious, but
That's the big picture. So that's why, and mind you, this alliance only grew since the Biden administration.
yeah.
The previous administration, and I'll even say to some extent the
Obama.
Obama before that, had them all in check. Nobody was doing anything. And the biggest thing that killed it for us was the fracking and the gas. Once the Biden administration shut that down, we were at the mercy of these nations again. We were a powerhouse when we started producing oil and when we didn't need them anymore. And when we were an option for all of Europe. Why does that matter? When we can send our oil and gas over to Europe, they don't need to get it from Russia.
Right.
Now Russia doesn't have any, cash flow anymore. Russia's not a wealthy country. And by the way, China is not economically sound. People misunderstand this. And it's a shame because we had a real opportunity to bring China to their knees. We really did. The previous president really had them in check. But economically, they have their own issues. And even though they're communists, they do have like an elite group of people that run things, business people,
Right.
that put pressure on the communist government. And they don't like it when they can't, when real estate loses value and whatnot. And there's a lot of stuff going on in China. Having said that, and you have to throw crazy North Korea in the mix too. So all these individuals have been talking to each other since this has been going on. And lo and behold, on October 7th, we have an attack in the Middle East, right? That's always the area that's used to kind of spark things. So it's not just about Israel, and it's not just about Hamas. Sadly, they're the small potatoes, right?
See, but that's where I kind of disagree. I don't consider Israel a small potato. They have a very strong military.
They do. They do. They also have a military where everybody fights.
Yeah.
And I guess going back to our original comment about this, right? The difference between their youth and our youth, not to say they're, some of them are liberalized coming here to America.
You're forced to be in the army for 2 years. Right.
That's the ultimate in nationalism and populism, which are bad words nowadays, right? You are forced to fight for your country. Now, I don't know. I'm not going to say that I'm pro or against that at this point, but they don't have the history that we have in the hundreds and hundreds of years, right? Israel as a nation. So, 40s, 50s, after World War II is when it really picked up and Israel started to get its own nation state over there. They had to act quickly. And as you could see, and your generation is now seeing what my generation has seen and what Douglas Mackey was saying, people always hate the Jews. Right. I don't know why. They're like the target. So they needed to form a nation. They fought several wars. They've lost some and they've won some. They've won territory over there. They've just tried to some extent. They just want their own nation state. And nobody wants it. And it's advantageous to these other geopolitical people to use that area because of the alliances involved. Think about it. World War II started when Hitler invaded Poland. What did we care in the U.S.? And somehow, how many years later, we wound up getting involved in a world war where we wound up saving their asses over there, like we did in World War I. Right. So it's always about roping America in. We are, or we have.
Well, don't you think wouldn't every superpower kind of get roped in at some point? There's a lot of money to make in war. Because I think China and Russia would get roped in eventually. And I think the only reason Russia hasn't gotten roped in already is because they're fighting a war against the Ukraine. The second that war is done, they're going to start moving assets.
Arguably, the U.S. is the superpower.
Right.
We have always been the superpower. They don't want to admit that, but just go look at the budget of NATO and what the previous president kept complaining about, and he's absolutely right. We fund NATO. Everybody's supposed to put in a certain percentage. Only America does. Right. All these other countries, they don't put the money in. But yet, by the way the treaty's structured, we have to go fight and save their asses every time there's a problem. So as soon as there's a problem, they immediately turn to America because we fund these things to the fullest extent. And rightly so, our past president said, hey, why are we your police force all the time? It's not like anybody's coming over our country to help us when our border gets overrun. So either start putting more money into it, start putting more of your civilians out there on the front line, or we're getting out of NATO. There's no upside for the Americans. We're just paying not only with money, but with our children's lives.
Yeah.
To protect them for the third time. We already did World War I, we're doing World War II, and now they're, next war they expect us to come. And the arrogance is they look at us and they're like, they call us every name in the book, and then the first one's to say, you need to put in more money into NATO. I'm sorry, we don't. What am I getting out of it anymore as an American other than headaches?
Right. Yeah. But all right, I have to put a pause on this one because we just did half an hour on that one.
Yeah.
And I have to cut some articles out, but let's do, so this one's interesting because now we're getting a little more and more out of this one. Now, we haven't really talked about the assassination since the recorded podcast 2 weeks ago. Right. So much stuff has come out about this that, again, you can call yourself a conspiracy theorist if you were like, oh, he's not working alone. And even then, I was like, okay, let's chalk it up to just negligence on Secret Service and his personal bodyguards. But then I saw the questioning of the head of, whatever her name is. And then I go, oh, wait, there's way more to this. So now we have audio of two separate shooters, which, again, is still alleged. Right? She talks about how they questioned the crap out of her. and she couldn't answer any questions. Apparently, there was no audio recordings, which you would think that you're telling me the one day that you have an assassination on a president, there's no audio recordings between agents.
Yeah.
Because now my conspiracy hat goes back on. At first, I was like, okay, this is a crazy kid. And now I'm like, okay, hold on. Let's put that tinfoil hat back on real fast. And so the other things that I've seen is, I don't know if you saw the live, well, it's not live. It's a recorded, it's a Secret Service agent talking to the police, and they give the kid's phone to the police officer. And they remember they said, oh, we can't crack into this kid's phone. It's an iPhone and whatnot. Yeah. It's literally a video of the police officer going through this kid's phone, or this guy's phone. And it's a picture of him dead, because I guess they took a picture with his phone or something, and another person dead. So 2 people died that day that were shooters at the president, and we have no clue who this other guy is. Right. So again, now it's starting to get incredibly fishy.
Yeah.
So this is talking about this is talking about a whistleblower, one of the agents that went dark, which again, I don't know. I never trust these articles, the actual, like this one agent, this one lone whistleblower, because 9 times out of 10, I feel like it's someone. Actually, I would say like 99 times out of 100, it's always just someone that wants 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah, I disagree with that comment, and I'll tell you why. And that's why that Rumble, you should listen to that Rumble one that I sent you when you get a chance. So,
again, you just sent me the page. I can't see it.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to send it to me again.
There's some interesting things going on in the sense that I agree. This isn't just the January 13th stuff, besides all the other unorthodox processes that were going on that day, that everyone's like, hey, why was this done?
January 13th? You mean July 13th or what? You just said January 13th.
July 13th. Yeah, okay, 13th. I'm calling it Day 13th. So, from all that's been, it was a shit show just how everything was done, right? And to make it sound like, it was all this woman's fault. I don't think it was that she didn't know things. I think it was that she didn't want to admit to things more than anything else, or the fact that it was kind of a unmonitored, it just wasn't handled very well. But in answer to what you're saying, they're talking about 2 shooters and a mystery ATF agent. This is coming from Senator Ron Johnson. So they're looking for a second shooter, right, and a mystery ATF agent that has gone dark, which is very interesting. And the reason why that's very interesting is, they're talking about people who, I'm trying to find it. He came along, he took some pictures and had them sent. And, the sniper team was the first to go on the roof, take some pictures. Someone in a suit approached them, told them to send those photos to an ATF agent.
That's the video that I saw. So I saw the live video of him.
This was very strange. No one even asked him for credentials. They thought it was Secret Service. They tried to call the ATF agent, but now he's gone dark. They cannot find him. WTF, okay? A lot of weird things going on here.
That's why at first I was like, it could just be a crazy kid that got on a roof, did it himself. But then you see all the stuff that comes out about secret. Like, honestly, if they never did that questioning, I think it can go either way. People can come up with their own conclusions. But you can't watch that and go, oh, man, that's weird. No audio.
A lot of weird things. Okay, yeah. And now I draw your attention to the Darren Beatty article with Revolver. I brought him up before, and he does a deep dive on the J6, January 6th bomber. Okay, anybody in the audience remember the whole bomber? Boy, there was a bomber that day, and still the FBI has been unable to identify who that person is. And we have since Mike Johnson became speaker, he released more video. Darren Beatty's gone through it all. We have since seen somebody tell both the Secret Service van and the FBI van that there's a bomb over there on the bench, and they both sit there in their cars and they're talking. Nothing happens. They let school children walk by this bomb at the bench. There's video of it. Nobody says boo. I don't know how much longer, but certainly not urgently like there's a bomb there. They call in for the trucks to come and take down the bomb with the robots, okay? Oh, and by the way, the Vice President of the United States was in that building the whole time.
Yeah, the Vice President at the time. And then what about all the Democrats like AOC saying it was horrible, I had to hide, and we found out AOC wasn't even there? Remember that?
So we have an ATF agent that was involved in that, who was running the whole
Oh,
J
that's what I
bomb
want to say.
thing. And that person's name is Ashen Benedict. Okay. That person is now head of dignitary protection for the Capitol.
Really?
And wouldn't it be interesting if he happens to be the agent that had those pictures sent to him?
That would be
Will we
interesting.
ever find that out? Will anybody ever tell us that? Now, I'll move you on to Mike Benz, who's also in this, not in this article, but in the other thing. He's very interesting to listen to. If you ever get that chance to look at it. We now know that there was a camera facing the bench looking directly at
it.
the person they thought was the J6, but they had the camera with him reaching in the bag and pulling something out. And guess what? All of a sudden, the camera feed stops.
Yeah. Interesting.
They can eliminate who this person. And by the way, there's a $500,000 bounty to anybody with information about this individual. Don't you think you might want to figure out that video where you could see the person doing? Maybe it doesn't pull a bomb out at all. Maybe it's not the person. Maybe they're
Right,
completely.
but they just need yeah.
Right.
But
so I disagree. I think there is a connection, and we're going to start to see. Mark my words. The same characters involved in both.
I think we won't even find out. But maybe you're right, Mom. But I think so. The other thing about that questioning, which kind of blew my mind, was, and I think Sprague actually said this. It's kind of like a lot of Democrats are trying to either save face or whatever. But AOC was really grilling this lady with questions. I was like, whoa, that doesn't seem like an AOC question. And then there was another Democratic guy in there that was really going off on the lady. So the question is this like a damage control sort of deal, or like why would you do that? But AOC asked a great question. Why would you not have a gun that can shoot up to 400 meters or whatever? Why would you not have Secret Service lock down everything within 400 meters? Right? She's completely correct. Like even Twitter was like, yeah, I'm a Republican. That's one of the best questions I've ever heard. So props to her, but it's just it's
a question that they all should have been asking.
Right.
And also when we find out that they knew for 20 minutes that this guy was up on a roof and nobody took the president to the side, he said, I would have waited. Well, he's gone on late before because these things happen all the time.
The real damning information was when she said we didn't put people on the roof because it was too sloped and too hot, and then the sniper that took out the guy was on a roof that was more in the sun and more sloped. There's too many questions.
And who asked a better question? I think it was Darren Beatty who said, how did he know there was nobody up there?
Right. Well, I guess looking, but either way, how did you lock down 100? If we're talking like 100 meters away, that's one thing. But you're talking about 150 yards out, or meters, whatever they used for measurement, at head level. That doesn't make sense. Especially when Secret Service is there a month before checking to make sure what they have to watch.
And people are on the ground saying, hey, there's somebody on the roof there. Who's not supposed to be there.
Everyone pointing. Yeah, there's too much to it. The other one is like, people think, oh, this is a day of negligence. No, this is a month of negligence because, right, you're supposed to, it's locked down months in advance. I said this story. I don't know if I said this on stream or last time we talked, but Obama was on Mark Maron's podcast. Mark Maron's a political, he used to be a comedian, and I think he still does comedy. But he had Obama on, and I believe it was post-presidency. Secret Service came out 7 days before and locked down everything within a mile just to do a podcast for an hour. You're telling me you didn't lock this down for a month in advance?
We used to know a Marine who would scout it out ahead of time. We personally, our friend's son-in-law, well, my acquaintance's nephew, if you will, in-law, as a Marine.
Well, that's Mr. Greta, right? Mr. Greta's been on the podcast, so we can use that.
Okay,
we can say his name.
His, not blood nephew, but friends married a Marine, and that was his job with other Marines. They would go and scout the areas because that was when the then president would go and do rallies. The last president would do rallies. That was their function, to go check out the area, make sure it was safe. I mean, I don't know all the details, but it's not like it's done that day. These things are done ahead of time. And I think we said this in the last podcast. There's a chain of command. I'm sure there's a process. And I'm sure it's been, organized to these sects that, okay, 2 days before this letter goes out to local police, 3 days before this letter goes
every
to
time.
All this stuff, you check the boxes, you do it. And then you go back and you say which boxes were in check, because that's where the buck lies. And if it goes all the way back to the leader didn't do what she was supposed to do or respond or whatever, That's where it goes. And you hit every person along the way. But this back and forth of, well, we weren't responsible, the Secret Service and this and that.
It doesn't make sense. Things don't add up. There's too many things. There's too many things that don't add up with that attempt. Thank God he wasn't hit seriously, but
And as an American citizen who pays for all these individuals with her tax dollars, why is this so complicated?
yeah. How many millions of dollars? How many tens of millions, maybe even hundreds of millions, goes into Secret Service?
And it's like they're making this shit up as they go. All right, today let's do it this way because he has a rally in this place.
Right.
Or what if it's Jill
again, if
What
it
if
was a long range
President
shot from a mile away, that's one thing. But we're talking head level at 150 yards or meters. I think it's yards, but like that doesn't make sense. That just doesn't add up. And then he was somehow managed to get onto the roof. Did he bring a ladder over? Because when you look at it, I don't see any way to get it to that roof unless you have a ladder.
No, it's an embarrassment to our nation because whether you like that candidate or not,
Yeah. It just
he used to be the president of the United States. He's not some nobody who's running for the office now.
yeah.
They deserve protection. So does President Obama. So does President Clinton and his wife and the daughter. They all deserve that protection because there are lunatics out there. It gets a little bit concerning when we have to rethink the wheel for this president.
Yeah.
Just like
One of the
I
most
mean-
dividing presidents in history, maybe the most dividing. And like on the last day of his campaigning before the RNC. Yeah, there's too many factors now, especially since that hearing, that you can't go, huh.
And with
something to
all
this.
we're learning back
Yeah.
from JFK, our government's involvement, and with all citizens are seeing, right? Like, don't maybe the current administration says, don't believe what's in front of you. Don't believe what you're seeing because it's not true. What we're seeing, it ain't good for our government in general. And you asked about a pendulum. These pendulums are swinging too far where you don't have to be a Republican to say, I think I've had enough. I'm paying for these shenanigans.
Right.
Maybe I don't like the guy, but I certainly don't want to have to risk somebody getting killed over this. Because people tend to forget, an American citizen died
Yeah.
because of their negligence. A firefighter, retired firefighter, and 2 others were seriously injured. If you don't care about President Trump, that's fine. But if you're going to sit there and say, well, I could care less because it's some MAGA retard, whatever they say, that's an American citizen,
Yeah.
right? I don't like it when
Well, that's why that
Destiny
Destiny guy is getting so much shit right now, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw. I don't even want to. As I said, ever since that, I kind of lost a lot of respect for that guy. In fact, I would say I have no respect for him. But I mean, you can visibly watch his career kind of falling apart, and rightfully so. So I hope Pierce Morgan stops having him on the show because he didn't condemn that guy, but that's wild. I don't care where you are on the political spectrum. If you're
What everybody has to understand is one of the great things about our democracy. We have transition of power without bloodshed.
right,
You can't say that in other countries. Look at what's going on in Ukraine. That's supposedly a democratic nation. That doesn't happen. And we've been doing this since the beginning. Okay? When you now get to the point where they're possibly picking off candidates, we tried lawfare, they're trying lawfare, they're trying all these things. We go back to Kennedy, and maybe it wasn't as peaceful, even though it was an election year, blah, blah, blah. But this is why it's bad overall. That's why I'm saying I don't want to see any president assassinated for whatever reason or any candidate. That's bloodshed, and that's not how our democracy is supposed to work.
right.
And these people need to be put in check, these nut jobs or these individuals. And I'm telling you right now, with all the other stories, and we're not going to go into it here, but there's too much involvement with the FBI, with people like that shooter online, getting them to do things. Special agents or retired FBI agents.
The other one that gets me is the fact that he was in a BlackRock commercial. Did you know that? Yeah.
Yes.
There's
But we do know now that there are, I think there is more information, or they are able to go into his IP and see stuff.
Okay.
And don't quote me on this because I don't remember where I read it because I was reading a lot of different things. But I believe he was in contact with an FBI agent. And they tracked his phone one day. And he was, interestingly, this 20-year-old who seems to be like before last week, had no identity, no online, blah, blah, blah.
All of a sudden they're finding all this stuff.
Washington, D.C. and was in a building right next door to the FBI.
Yeah, as I said, too many things. But we're going to put that one on pause, too, because it's already 4:45. But We'll do like a little speed aspect of this one. This one was pretty interesting. I was debating moving this one, but you sent me this, which is the Losing America's Memory.
Yeah.
This is, I knew it was bad. I didn't think it was this bad, but I will admit there were some questions in here where I wasn't really sure of. Like I had to second guess myself. But basically the gist of this article is that they asked 3,000 college university students their knowledge of the history and American government. And it's a great website because it basically tells you statistically, asking questions, the percentages of how many kids know the answer. Well, college students know the answers to these things. And I was very surprised I knew it was bad. I just didn't think it was that bad.
Yeah.
So,
well, the one thing I just want to say before we start, because I was thinking about this, the one assumption we have to make, and I didn't see anywhere in the article, okay? Were you asking citizens? Because not every college student is from America.
I was thinking,
and not everyone went through our school system.
The other one that was, I don't know if you tested it, but I was very surprised to see the genders. Did you do the gender test? I was very surprised by that too. And we'll go through that. Is there anything you want to say about this article? Because I kind of want to go through the answers real fast because it just goes to show.
But it's screaming, bring back civics, right? It's screaming that when they know Bezos as the head of Amazon in a larger majority than they know some, not all of these questions, like the father of the Constitution, that's a little bit tough for people. But
specific dates was tough too.
Right. Some of the dates a little bit tricky, and do you need to know when people could vote at 18? I mean, I'd be happy if people know that you can vote at 18 nowadays. Right. But yeah, some of the questions I thought were a little bit deep, but it just, that's what it says to me. They've been chipping away at civics because it's easier to manipulate people. If you really understand civics, you scream about mail-in ballots. I mean, every young person, if they went through and learned civics in high school and see what's going on with the mail-in ballots, they'd be the first one to say things like that. No, you can't do that. But that's why they chip away at that. They've gotten rid of civics in the classroom because they don't want you understanding your government.
Yeah, because, I mean, when I was in college, 2018, during the big elections and stuff, well, most of 2016 was when the big election happened, but I feel like mine was the, when I was in college, was the start of safe spaces. so it was kind of that was kind of, yeah, anyway. I didn't learn any history in my classes. I didn't take any history classes.
You usually learn civics in high school. It used to be a required subject.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
Yes, and they've been phasing it out. I mean, you had that in high school. I'm pretty sure all three of you had it. I believe there's a certain amount you have to learn in. I
don't remember that at all.
Public schools. Yeah, I think you had it in one of your history or civics in history, something like that.
Yeah, I don't even remember my teachers in high school. Feels like so long ago. I can't remember.
Yeah, when you're in our state, in the middle school, you had a whole year of New Jersey history. So you learned about the state.
Right, I vaguely remember that.
And then you did a whole thing on American history or civics.
I don't know if I get. This is gonna sound crazy, but I don't know how many students I can even name when I was in high school. Like, I just don't remember anyone from high school because it seems so long ago. But
yeah, that happens.
So most students do not know who the president of the Senate is. So they always think, and this one I can kind of understand a little bit because you don't really talk about it that much. But I knew is it always the vice president, Mom, or is it not? That was my question.
Yes.
It always is, correct?
In the Constitution, the vice president is the president of the Senate. So you have what's called the Senate pro tempore. So that's usually, like right now, I think the Dems are the majority.
Right.
I think that's Hakeem. Is that Hakeem Jeffries? So, whoever. No, he's in the House. So you have somebody from the day to day, but technically the president of the Senate is the vice president of the United States, and he or she is the one who breaks any ties.
Right. Because exactly. And I was kind of happy that 27% of them got this right, because I knew it was Kamala. I just didn't know it was always the vice president. But when I break down the gender stuff, like, look at how many. I'm very surprised by how many of 3,000 people identify as non-binary. But I wonder if it means non-binary or just not going to give the answer, am I male or female? That was my question.
A lot of it too. Yeah, I think some of it is people are just not responding to some of these things.
I have a lot of friends, right? I have a lot of friends. I don't know more than 3 people that consider themselves non-binary. So where do you find 223 except for at a college?
Well, that's what I mean. It's college.
Yeah,
So
that's a weird one to me. Almost 1/3 of students think that senators serve 4-term years. This one I knew because of you. It's 6 years, and 2 for representatives.
Right.
So yeah, this one I'm glad. I was actually surprised 40% knew that. This one, 1/3 of our students were not sure who the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is. I knew it was John Roberts.
Right.
Right. I don't know why though. Why is he the?
He is chosen for that spot. So when the last Chief Justice retired or died, I can't remember what happened. You're specifically picking the Chief Justice. So George Bush picked John Roberts for the Chief Justice position.
Gotcha. And how is that position different from the others? On that?
That position has certain rights and whatnot where he can decide what cases come before them.
Gotcha. Okay, I thought so, but I wasn't 100% positive.
And also, if the president of the United States is impeached and it goes to the trial, which was another one of the questions, they get impeached in the House of Representatives and they're tried for impeachment in the Senate. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is the judge, magistrate, if you will, who oversees the trial.
Almost half of the students incorrectly identify Thomas Jefferson as the father of the Constitution. It's James Madison.
Yeah.
I'll give them a pass on this one. And the reason I give them a pass on this one is because growing up, and I remember a history class in like grade school, you hear Thomas Jefferson's name more than anyone else. So I can understand how you can get this one wrong. Not sure. I think it's the fair answer, but George Washington, I wouldn't say he's known for the Declaration of Independence. Or for the Constitution, I mean.
Right. Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, but for people who really study history, like my generation, used to go more in depth. James Madison was heavily involved in the Federalist Papers.
Right. Thomas Jefferson was like the most educated, right? In the sense of he knew how to read, write better than everyone else. Like he was like that top of the, he was like the valedictorian of the school.
He had an even greater understanding of governments and ideologies from around the world at that time, like the philosophers that influenced our government. And it was him, John Jay, and I can't remember who the third one was. Can't think of it. But they were really into the Federalist Papers because they had to write constantly and send this information out. I think they even did it under pen names to convince people to support the Constitution. They had to literally go out and sell this document and this concept to the American people. This is why we need a Constitution. So that's why he's the father of it.
Less than 1/3 of students know that the legislative branch has the power to declare war. This one I genuinely didn't know. I did think it was the executive branch. I knew that everyone talked about it, but I thought the executive branch made the ultimate decision.
No, and the way you remember is when FDR, he gave his famous speech where he said, "Today is a day that lives in infamy." That's the day he went to Congress to ask them to declare war after Japan attacked us at Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, I always thought that it was like a conversation amongst all the branches to do it, and then the executive made the order. So where do like generals fall? Like the generals that aren't they considered executive branch?
Well, they report to the president is the commander in chief of all our military forces. Okay, so he sits down with the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which is the head of all the military, and they make decisions about strategy.
Gotcha. And then they go to the legislative branch, and that's once they decide we're going to war.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's really done with the Secretary of State and with the cabinet, and they go in and they sit. The president sits with his cabinet and decides. Normally, what's going to happen, but when we were bombed Pearl Harbor, he had no choice anymore.
Right.
Everybody wanted the U.S. to go into World War II.
That's what
they purposely bombed us to bring us in, and that's when FDR had to make that decision.
When we do like spec ops missions, would that still be under? Would you go to the legislative branch for something like that, or is it just full out war?
No, it's when you declare a war. It's an actual, because there are things that fall into place when you do that, and certain things that budgeting wise, to pay for the war, everything starts to happen at that point.
This one I was a little upset with. Only 1/4 of students know that the 13th Amendment freed the slaves. You got to know that one. That's a pretty big one, especially in the times today. But this kind of goes to the point of this is what happens when you try erasing history, right? The people forget the important things like the 13th Amendment.
Right.
More than 1/3 of students are not sure who the Speaker of the House Representative is. We know that that's Mike Johnson.
Now it
In
is, but
their defense, it's
right, we've
changed
had
quite a
2.
bit.
It
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hakeem Jeffries, that one's not a. I prefer the not sure. That's a fair one.
Yeah.
This one, 89% of students know that Amazon is owned by Jeff Bezos. Uh, I think this is fair. I'm actually surprised it's not 100%, to be honest.
Right.
But
Right.
this one makes sense because everyone buys stuff on Amazon now. He was the wealthiest man in the world
Yeah, I
at
mean,
one
they
point.
throw this in as a comparative.
Exactly.
So what they know culturally versus what they should know or what's more important.
I'm going to make a bold claim here. If you're not sure or you picked Alphabet, TikTok, or Meta to who owns Amazon, you probably shouldn't be voting.
Yeah, I
I
know,
feel like
right?
that's pretty common knowledge that Jeff
Yeah.
Bezos owns Amazon or was the founder or something. Technically, he's not the CEO anymore. He's just the head shareholder. He stepped down a couple of years ago when that divorce happened. But you should at least know that one. At that point, I would take those people and be like, okay, we're good on questions for you guys.
I agree.
Less than 1/4 of students know that the Gettysburg Address is the source phrase, government of the people, by the people, for the people, right? Abraham, yeah. I mean,
That's a tough one too.
Yeah.
I can understand people not knowing that.
it's fair, but that's a pretty big one. But just because it's used in movies a lot, it's quoted a lot.
Right.
Less than 1/3 of students know when the Constitution was written. This one, again, time-wise, I can understand. I don't expect you to remember 1787, right? Unless if you're saying like 18 something or 16 something, then we got a problem. If you're saying,
Right.
oh, wasn't it written back in the 1950s? Like,
And I'm
okay.
sure there's a lot of people your age and younger who don't know the difference between the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. So
Right.
they just assume it's 1767.
My other question is, why do they think 1812? What happened in 1812? I know that's a significant date. I
War of
can't.
1812.
Okay, gotcha. More than 1/3.
They're pulling a date out of their ass.
Yeah, geez.
No.
More than 1/3 of. Well, my guess is it was probably a multiple choice, and that sucks.
Yeah, if
It
you
was
look at the summary
probably
at the end, they
yeah.
show you
So
the
that's why I
choice.
even I'm like, so with the Amazon one, don't you think the one that like Jeff Bezos? Don't you think? Oh, I see. Okay, hold on. Let me step it back then a little bit. 89% of students. So it wasn't what company does Jeff Bezos own. It's I thought. Well, it is. It's which one does Jeff Bezos own or start. If you said Alphabet, TikTok, Meta, then it's like, you know. So I'm wondering how. I bet you, Mom, going back to this one, and again, sorry to jump back and forth. I bet you the people that didn't know this, those are the foreign exchange students.
Question 16. What company is owned by Jeff Bezos? Meta, TikTok, Alphabet, Amazon, not sure.
Right. My guess is that those people, those are the ones that aren't exchange students or something.
Could be.
Because that would make sense as to why they don't know that one. Again, I forgot. Because, okay. Either way, sorry. I just wanted to jump back to that one.
Let's be Chris, there are a lot of college students who are idiots.
Yeah,
Don't
I know
forget
some of
that.
them.
They're absolute idiots.
Yeah.
So
What other ones were important? The U.S. Senate, those are some that I didn't expect them to get. Most students clarify which case ended segregation in public schools. Brown v. Board of Education. I actually wasn't sure on this one because I wasn't sure what the other ones were, and I was like, oh no, is there any more important? I'm surprised that they knew this one, that so many students knew this one. And definitively. I wonder how many of that was a guess. And I also want to know why they know that.
well, that's a pretty famous case.
Even to
I know
students?
too.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know it, but I'm surprised how many people knew that one. But they didn't know Bezos.
Right. Yeah.
That's where I go, man, this is a little off.
Yeah.
Most students, that's the one we just read, almost half the
I would
doctrine.
think they'd know that one more than which Supreme Court doctrine established judicial review.
Yes, that I would
But
expect that.
everybody learns that one in basic history, U.S. history. You might not get to the Brown versus Board of Ed. Let me just share something with your group before we go on. When I went to school, you did the same thing every freaking year. We never learned about the Vietnam War because we've always ran out of time every school year. We always started at the beginning with the Indians and the Native Americans and the ships in Columbus. By the time you get to, so for the longest time, I never knew anything about the Vietnam War, which just ended about, 5 years before I was in high school. And it's just always so funny to me because to this day, I have to educate myself about the Vietnam War because I didn't learn it in school. They just always went over the same information. That's why
Right.
my generation tends to know a lot more about our founding fathers and the history, because you guys had AP Euro history and, you learned about every other country and whatnot. So
Right.
go ahead.
So the two really important ones that really kind of was a kick in the face. More than half of the students would flee the country if the United States was invaded, right? This one kind
Sure.
of sucked because I was like, oh man, all students. So 43% would stay. Would stay and fight. Most males would stay, which is good, I guess. Female students would flee. Non-binary would flee, right? And it's like, think of all the things that you're trying to accomplish here and how well it's going for you, and you still would flee the country. That one sucked. But if you go by the politics, like look at how many Democrats and independents would leave. Like Democrats are just like, yeah, we're out. Strong Democrats would flee instantly. So that one was a real kick in the face. And unfortunately, I knew the answer. I knew that was what was going to happen. But I was
Here's
just
my
like, fuck.
question, and this is a good one for my generation. We ask this all the time. Where are you going?
Yeah. Where would you flee to? Canada? Good
What are
luck.
you going to?
Yeah.
Right. Canada. If the U.S. is invaded, how long you think Canada's going to last?
Yeah.
Same thing. I mean, we're invaded by Mexico. What, are you going to go down to Mexico? You could when all of them come here. Are you going to go to Europe? Europe is burning now.
Right.
What do you think is going to be over there?
I
Right?
I just hate how I want freedom, rights, and all this stuff. And then when shit hits the fan, they're like, we're out.
Well, and notice you said the binaries, right? Or the non-binary. Okay. The ones causing the most trouble, the first ones to say they're going to leave.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Again, I put it as Democrat because it doesn't give me the binary or non-binary, except for, oh, well, that's not really true. Something else, 40%, something else. Wait, I have to go back to gender, I guess. So non-binary, yeah, most of them would flee. They're the highest. Non-binary don't give a shit. And I feel like I can kind of comfortably say this, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like the ones that are non-binary are the ones that are American, not exchange students, because the exchange students come from countries that probably don't even have non-binary in there.
I can't
You
comment
don't
on
think
that.
so?
I
Because
don't know really.
I don't know any foreign exchange students that come as non-binary, but maybe I'm
Well, they
wrong.
may come because they are non-binary and they can only come to school here and feel comfortable.
Maybe, but I would think that that's pretty.
Oppressive America that everybody hates is the only one that allows non-binaries to go to our universities.
So this is one that also kind of bothered me. More than half students often self-censor when discussing social and political issues with their peers. So this one, again, I get it because of the political climate we're in right now. But I feel like when you start self-censoring and saying, I don't want to look at stuff, it makes you uneducated and you can't talk about these things with someone. This is what kills debates. The fact that I don't have enough information, I'm going to have my own opinion though. And based on the lack of information and having no information and self-censoring, you have less of an argument to even talk. You become less open-minded.
Well, I'll throw this out to you. I think there's about 10 million gun owners in this country. And at the height of the NRA, what was it, 8 million people registered? They're down to 3 million people. Now, does that mean 5 million people gave up their guns? No. They don't want to be part of the NRA because you got to worry that the government is going to go after you.
Get involved, yeah.
They're going to get the memberships and they're going to go look into everybody's personal accounts, their businesses, under the guise that it's terrorism. So I understand why people do that now. And I bet you if you ask them, most of those people are conservative.
Yeah.
Now, it's self-censored for that reason.
And so there you go, because I looked at the politics of those people that censor. And mostly independents that lean Republican, which is probably what I would consider myself, or weak Republican. I'm surprised it's 70%. And I wonder, now my question is, are those people that prefer not to get involved, or is that the silent majority?
I think with young people, it's probably prefer not to get involved because usually in college, like I said, the politics and the demonstrations you see going on in universities, they are not organic. They're paid for. We know that now. That's not to say there aren't a handful of people who really want to go out there and blah, 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 blah,
Right.
blah. In my day, you didn't have time to spend that much energy unless somebody was paying you and you weren't technically a student. So, for the most part, people who are in university, they're there for a reason. They're not there looking for the next protest or the next thing to take a stand on. You might be a political science major, and that's part of the, but that's not the only major in a
Right.
college. So, I think some of it is just people like, I don't need to be political right now. I'm doing something else.
So
they self-censor
that's what I
that
was
way.
kind of gonna say, because one thing that I realized that I think happened as well, when it says independent, I
Mhm.
don't know if they mean independent party or unsure, right? Because I bet you see what I mean? Because I don't think that they would consider, if they say independent, does that mean they're voting for Robert Kennedy Jr. or are they saying I'm not sure yet who I'm going to vote for?
No, I think they mean it as as a party, meaning I'm not committed to either party.
Exactly. So it's not the independent party, and I wonder how many people thought that when they did the test. See, there's a lot more
Well,
factors
there's
to this where I
no,
go,
it's
because
not
then
an
they have
independent.
independent but lean Republican and lean
Wait a
Democrat.
minute. There's no independent party in our country. It's Republican. It's Democrat. If you run as an
Dependent,
independent,
yeah.
that means you're not aligned with either party.
Right, but would you argue that right now independent would be Robert Kennedy Jr.? Because when I hear
He's running
independent,
as
independent.
he's running as an
Right,
independent
but
candidate.
do you see what I'm saying? How many people hear that, like college students go, "Oh, independent RFK Jr." They're seeing it as a
No,
party.
I think no, I think independent means I don't consider myself either Republican or
Right,
Democrat.
but maybe 50% thought that and 50% didn't. We're talking
That
about,
could
remember, these are
be,
people that didn't
yeah.
even know who Bezos was for one of the
Right,
questions.
right. I mean, you can parse it only to some extent because you don't know each
Right.
individual and they're not really going into too much detail. But if somebody says I'm an independent, it doesn't mean I belong to a party. It means the opposite. I don't belong to any party.
Right.
I'm not Republican and I'm not Democrat. I leave my options open.
All right, it's already 5:07, Mom, so we're going to run through these super fast.
Sure.
OpenAI could be on the brink of bankruptcy in under 12 months with projections of $5 billion losses.
Yeah, Chat GPT maker could be bankrupt in the next 12 months. It costs about 700,000 to run it daily. They spend 7 billion to train their AI models, 1.5 billion just for staffing. So while the revenue could be anywhere from 3.5 to 4.5 billion annually, that doesn't cover their operating
Yeah.
costs.
So here,
So
I'll tell
they're
you why this happened, right? This is the downside of having something open source. So ChatGPT is open source. Anyone can use it.
yeah.
Literally Google, Amazon, whatever you name it, said, okay, we'll give it a shot. And then they reverse engineered it. Now they're like, we don't need ChatGPT anymore because we have our own that we can do. So that's why ChatGPT is going to run out of money trying to make innovations.
Right.
But there's nothing to sell anymore because you made it open source. You buy it once, you reverse engineer it, and now everyone is in that.
Right. So they're going to basically, they need to come up with another revenue source
Yeah.
in order to do that, or they're going to need investment. They're going to need somebody to put money
They're
in.
going to need investors like Google, Amazon, Meta.
Yeah.
And then what ends up happening is we'll give you the investment, but we want you to do this for us. Right.
And they have their own AI.
Yeah.
So
That's
why
probably
am I
based off
investing
chat.
in another one other than I'll take it over or we'll do a joint thing?
The only reason I can see these companies investing in Sam Altman and ChatGPT is because even though they've used ChatGPT to improve on their own, I think that Sam Altman and OpenAI is still the leading factor of what the next step's going to be. So I think that's why it is worth these companies investing because it's less work for them to do.
Yeah.
Personally, but like I don't think OpenAI will actually go bankrupt because I think someone is going to bail them out just because of the future of AI, and there's going to be people that want that, so that's why I think they're kind of safe. But
Or there could be some consolidations.
yeah, I mean they're definitely
Consolidate.
talking about how we can make money on this thing because, to your point, you're banking on investors coming in, and not saying it won't happen. I think it will, but there's always that little mindset behind the scenes. So again, I think they'll be okay, but this is the downside of allowing everyone to have it and work off it and making it open source in the end. So
Tough to monetize.
yeah. So now let's quickly go through the big YouTube news, right? Now, Mom, this has been a rough year for 2024 in the YouTube space. So do you remember Ava Tyson?
Yes.
Do you remember this one? So Mr. Beast, as of last week or 2 weeks ago, we just found out there again, it's all alleged and there's enough evidence, but it seems like the Chris Tyson, who was the face of the LGBTQ community, everyone was so excited. One of the Mr. Beast guys is part of the community, got hit with underage minor talks, underage, the worst of the worst so far. But no, again, it's one of those, nothing sexual was done. It was just conversation, kind of the doctor disrespect situation. Now, here's where this article kind of bothers me a little bit. So this talks about one of the former employees of the company, Mr. Beast's editor or a secretary or whatever. She goes by Muxa or whatever, Muxkina, was talking about how they had some kind of aspects of it where they were talking, aspects were inappropriate. Seems like she really liked Chris. Chris didn't reciprocate. And then this is where I go, okay, this is where this falls apart. Ready? It was a one-sided sexual relationship in which Ava never reciprocated. Okay, Ava being Chris Tyson. Again, I'm not dead naming. I'm just using the article so everyone knows that they're together. Yeah. But this is the part where I went, oh, this is a girl looking for attention, right? Where was it? I found it. Hold on. According to Jess, this led the pair meeting in person, engaging in one-sided sexual relationship in which Ava never reciprocated. Though she left after finding out, Ava did not have the ability to cast anyone in a Mr. Beast video. Jess returned after she was brought back by an assistant. The two began living together and allegedly resumed this, whatever. It's like, okay, so you just want to be part of video because you thought it would change your life, and then you didn't get it, so now you're out. So, yeah, it doesn't exactly talk about the other minor relations that Ava had with these people, but we don't really have evidence of that just yet. Everyone's saying I have this evidence. So again, I think he's kind of in the clear until this happens, but it sucks that there's no information. Ava's getting all this negative publicity, and I don't want to say it's a bad thing that happened. No question about it.
I'm surprised it's taken this long for this to happen, to be honest.
Yeah, and as far as I can tell, there's no real information. We don't have any pictures, screenshots, whatever. In fact, the stuff that he's getting a lot of crap for is for stuff that he did before he was even on Mr. Beast's channel. So she was a man at that point. And it's definitely some stuff that's kind of wild that has nothing to do with anything illegal. It's just weird. So that's why I'm like, oh, man, this is tough. But real fast, the last one. This is the other big one. Last one. So
hey, don't be starving.
I know. I'm going to make it quick. We went on too long about the Palestine stuff. Cody Ko breaks silence on Tana. Okay. This one has a little bit of a quick explanation. So Tana, no one knows how to pronounce her last name. She's kind of listen, I like Tana. She's kind of a drama queen, but she talks about how there was a relationship that she had with this guy, Cody Ko, who's a pretty big YouTuber. I don't exactly know what kind of YouTuber he is. Tana basically alludes that when she was 17 at a party, she slept with this guy, or he slept with her, and he was 25 at the time, right? And then you have another woman come forth and say, yeah, I was the one that told him she was 17, and he did it anyway. But that woman, Mom, was Gabby Hanna. You probably don't remember her, but she was the one on TikTok that had that mental breakdown last year and posted like 100 TikToks in a day. Do you remember this article? It was like an obsessive amount. Yeah. And she went through a phase and all this stuff. So it's like you have two not exactly reliable people talking about this.
Right.
And again, I'm not discrediting them for anything, but these two aren't exactly the most. I wouldn't go to them for information on something, but it goes back to we're taking their word for it when we really only have two people talking about it. Yes. And he has to step down from his podcast. He hasn't really talked about it yet. Someone did kind of like a retracing of the steps of this is what happened, this allegedly happened, and maybe the evidence is there. But you need definitive evidence before you start destroying a person's life. And maybe the evidence is there. Again, I haven't super deep dived into it, but it's all in allegeds. Yes, he was at the party. Yes, Tana was 17 at the time.
Unfortunately, allegations are enough nowadays to ruin an individual's life.
Yeah.
And very rarely do you get the aftermath of, oh, sorry, we were wrong.
Yeah.
Because there's no accountability. And so that's what encourages these individuals to say whatever they want
and
to.
we're talking about something that happened probably about 6 or 7 years ago now, Right? I don't know how old she is now, but he's married to someone else. So why didn't you come out when you were 17 and this happened? Oh, because I was starting my YouTube career.
Yeah.
Didn't know it was going to blow up like this. And now it's like, okay, again, I like Tana. I don't mind her. She's cool with a lot of things and I like her podcast. But you can't do this X amount of years later and destroy a man's life with just alleged so far. It's your story and that's cool. And maybe I believe you and whatnot. But the person that's also talking about it is someone that's not exactly the most reliable person either and doesn't have a great track record. And we're just supposed to go, okay, let's ruin this guy's life.
Yeah. See, that's just it. It's more of like a blackmail scenario because in a court of law, if they're ever that's what a defense attorney is going to do. They're going to rip these two individuals apart to the point where they're going to put doubt in people's minds that this isn't even there's nothing substantial. But it doesn't matter. They're just the allegations are unfortunately
the argument is she has nothing to really gain from bringing this guy down. Like he's not some guy of power, to my understanding. It's not like he has some crazy following. In the sense of I've seen maybe 2 of his videos my whole life. So it's kind of like she has nothing to gain. It's not like anything's going for this guy to bring it up. So in that point, I believe her story, but there's still not enough to go, let's ruin this guy's career. You have to give me better evidence than something that was 6 years ago.
Let's see what comes out over time, because if there's any truth to it, eventually the truth comes out.
Yeah.
Or the opposite. He'll have something to say that, you know what, I can prove that this wasn't the case.
Right.
That's usually what happens. Or it'll just die away. Somebody will get paid off and you'll never hear about it again.
Yeah. Which is kind of Tana's in a weird position now because he's kind of just shitting on everyone, like past people. So it's just very hard to just go by someone's word, especially if it was a year ago. Okay, we can track that back. But we're talking, I think she's like 26 now. So you're talking 9 years ago?
Yeah. Well, there's things called statute of limitations.
Yeah.
Sometimes it expands because young people sometimes are not of right mind. They don't realize it till later on what happened to them.
Memory is very malleable. Yeah. Like human memory is not reliable. So it's tough. It's a tough one. So, all right. Well, either way, we can kind of end it there. I know we kind of,
unfortunately rushed it, but
yeah.
I'll save my other article for the next time. If you have anything else.
Just because, as you said, we're rushed. It's already at 5. I know Dad eats at like 5:30 now.
Yeah, I'm surprised
Dad's
he's
probably
not
losing his mind. But
rumbling.
yeah, so we'll end it there. The only things I have to promote, all the videos from this week. So we had the podcast. We had 2 Cristallo videos for the walkthrough because the developers actually asked me to do the walkthrough for that, which is pretty cool. Nice. And then what was this one? Dungeons of Hinterberg was the other one that I posted. So go check those out. Social media down below, promo codes down below, Discord down below, other stream links down below, and hopefully we'll see you next week for podcast 102.
Yep.
So, all right, guys. Laters.